Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and you're watching Easynomics. Gold is on a roll. Prices have broken record highs as demand for the yellow metal continues to surge worldwide. Central banks are among the biggest buyers in the current phase. China's central bank is topping its gold reserves for the 18th straight month, and the outlook remains bullish for the king of metals. Joining me now is Jim Rogers, one of the most seasoned investors and gold buyers that the world has known. He's the founder of Rogers International Commodity Index. Jim, lovely to have you back here at Business Today Television at the India Today group. As always, I know there is so much to learn from your experience in the gold sector and overall commodity space. So I'm going to begin by asking you, what is going on with gold? Jim, is this the Chinese gold rush?
Well, you should ask India. I mean, India has all the gold and silver in the world. Every time I would go to an Indian temple,
Recording in progress.
Oh my gosh, Indian temples have so much gold, so much silver, and all those beautiful Indian women, they have all the gold in the world and all the silver in the world. So you should ask Indian women. Don't ask me, but since you asked me, I will tell you. You know, gold has been down for many years. It has started moving, and when something has been down for years and it starts moving, it usually gathers some momentum. And that's what's happening with gold right now. The momentum is building, and once a market starts moving and there's momentum, who knows how high it will go. I own gold. I'm not selling. I'm watching.
How long will this momentum continue in your view, Jim?
Well, I would suspect that sometime in the next few weeks or months, we're going to have problems in the equity markets. And when we have problems in the equity markets, many people will turn to gold and silver as a protection, as a fallback. So I would suspect this has a ways to go. I'm not selling my gold and silver. And if they come down, I hope I'm smart enough to buy more.
Do you think, therefore, there is some room for caution as far as the overall equity markets are concerned? Because you said that you expect a reversal in the trend in the near future.
Well, yes, I'm not sure what you mean by why electricity. Electricity doesn't necessarily go with gold and silver, but obviously, if we're going to have problems, electricity is going to be very valuable, especially with all the cryptocurrencies now. Cryptocurrencies use a lot of electricity.
Okay. How much do you think prices can further go up as far as gold is concerned?
I am not smart enough to know how high it will go. I will tell you, though, it's going to go higher than I expect, and it's going to go higher than you expect because the momentum is building, and we haven't had a big equity stock market problem in a long time. So if we have a stock market problem and currency problems, gold can go very, very high. Don't sell your gold. Buy some more.
Buy some more. What about silver? Last time when we spoke, you had spoken about silver. So does silver also remain a buy at this point of time, Jim?
I would, if I were buying today, I would buy silver and not gold because silver's cheaper. I mean, silver's down over 50% from its all-time high, and gold is making all-time highs. So silver, at least on a historic basis, is cheaper. If I were buying today, I would buy silver, not gold.
Okay. Jim, why is gold going up? Is it just on account of what the central banks are doing and annual demand from countries like India?
Well, central banks are buying gold, and central banks have more money than I do. Central banks have more money than you do, even more than you. So when the central banks are buying, that means two things. They're not selling, and central banks often sell gold. But if they're not selling and they're buying, who knows, especially when turmoil comes to the financial markets. I would not tell you a price for gold, but it's going to be much higher than I could dream of. Do not sell your gold.
Well, that's a fair point. What's going on as far as Chinese demand for gold is concerned? Is this on account of what is happening in the Chinese economy, or are they sort of preparing for further geopolitical uncertainty?
Well, I read that the Chinese central bank is buying gold. I don't know. The Chinese central bank doesn't tell me what they're doing. But if the reports are correct, they have a lot of money, and there are lots of Chinese who will try to find some way to avoid turmoil. So you have 1.5 billion Chinese and the Chinese central bank. We haven't even talked about India. I mean, we have 1.5 billion Indians too. So if the Indians and the Chinese buy gold, who knows how high it will go. But as I said, if I were buying one today, I would buy silver, not gold.
Since you spoke about India, Jim, I want to remind our viewers, when you were with us at the India Today conclave earlier this year, you had told us that you were not invested in India. Has that changed in the past couple of months?
Oh, yes. It was more than the past couple of months. I have invested in India sometimes in my life and not at other times. The Indian government seems, they're certainly saying the right thing, and they're doing some of the right things. So if Delhi has changed, for the first time in my lifetime, my whole life, Delhi does not understand capitalism, doesn't understand money, does not like for people to make money. But now it seems that Delhi has changed. They understand how capitalism works, how money works, how profits work. And if that's the case, and it seems to be, India is going to be very, very exciting.
What about valuations within India, especially in the broader markets? Again, last time when you said you'd spoken about overvaluation, what are your views on that front currently?
Well, the Indian stock market is making all-time highs. It doesn't get any better than all-time highs for stocks in India. So if I owned Indian shares, I would not sell them. And if you don't own any, you might think about buying some more. Because if India is going to be the great country that it has been in the past, there are going to be fortunes made in India, not just in gold and silver, but also in shares.
And what sectors within the equity markets do you think look attractive and interesting to you, Jim?
Well, when I look at a market with a new eye, I try to look to see what's down. I see, if everything's making all-time highs, there must be something that has not gone up yet, or that must still be down. That's where I would look. I would suspect that Indian agriculture probably is attractive right now. I don't know, and tourism. Oh my gosh, India could be and should be one of the great tourist countries of the world. It is, but it could be even greater. You have some of the most astonishing man-made and natural sites in the world. I tell people all over the world, if you can only visit one country, you should visit India. It's an astonishing country for visiting to see tourist sites.
Okay. I know it's a hot summer here right now. You were with us in March, and I'm not sure when you plan to visit again, but would that visit come after the new government takes office? By all predictions, it's being said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to come back for a third term, and were that to play out, what would that mean for the markets and for global investors?
Well, Mr. Modi is quite popular everywhere he goes, including in India now. As you can see, he's won 2 elections. It looks like he's going to win a third. So whatever he and his party want to do, they will do, and it will be good for those sectors of the economy, and that's where you should look for investments.
Absolutely. Is there anything, Jim, that you would want to see in terms of a new policy approach by the government of India, something that would enthuse investors like you even more as far as the Indian market is concerned?
Well, the Indian currency, the rupee, is not a convertible currency. You're a great country now. This is not 1924. This is 2024. And India, I don't know why they still have a blocked currency. You know, if I want to buy Canadian dollars, I just go online and buy them, or euros or something. But in India, for some reason, still in 2024, I cannot do that. That is the place that I would start. I would open the currency, I would open the markets, I would make it extremely easy for foreigners, for everybody, to invest in the Indian currency markets, every market. India should be an open economy and be a great country again. It is a great country, but an even greater country.
Jim, since you spoke about the Indian currency, I want to ask you a question about the US dollar, because we all nations trade in the US dollar, and given what's happening on that front, do you think the US dollar has a long-term future?
Long-term? Well, no currency has lasted more than 100 years or so as being the top currency. The U.S. has been there for a long time. The U.S. is now the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. I don't like saying this. I'm American, as you know, but this is not very good at all. It's a good time to be an old American. Being a young American, you're going to have many, many problems, because the U.S. dollar is going to have many problems in the future. We are a gigantic debtor. They're going deeper into debt every day and printing more money every day. I don't know who's going to start competing with the U.S. dollar. I'm looking for the next currency. I have not found it yet.
And that doesn't include the Chinese currency as well? You think that also doesn't have a long-term chance to compete against the US dollar?
Well, if India would open its currency, who knows what might happen. But for some reason, Delhi, not just Delhi, but other countries too, but Delhi is what we're talking about. I don't know why they don't open the Indian rupee, the currency, to a free market. Call them up and ask them. Tell them they're making a mistake.
Okay.
They won't listen. They won't listen to me because I'm a foreigner. They'll listen to you.
But we will try and pass that on. But coming back to the point about the United States, employment numbers continue to surprise analysts. Inflation is panning out the way it is. And given that sort of overall robust economic indicators in the United States, do you see the Federal Reserve being able to cut rates and sort of reversing the cycle that we have seen in the recent past?
We've always had cycles. We've always had recessions throughout the world, and we will have them again, I assure you. Politicians say, don't worry, we will not have recessions. You should worry. You should not believe them, because the U.S. has had the longest period in American history without a problem. It means we're getting closer. I have not started selling short in the United States, but I know, I can see the signs. Some stocks go up every day. Everybody's very complacent. Debt is going higher. So don't worry, by the end of this year, next year, we will have problems in the American stock market again.
Okay, that's the third or fourth time that you have said this in the interview, and I want to therefore ask you a follow-up on that. What exactly could trigger those problems?
Well, American stocks are making all-time highs, which is wonderful if you own them, but it usually means when you start seeing everybody jumping into the market indiscriminately, it usually, in the past, it has meant that problems will be coming. And we're going to have problems in the U.S. stock market. I don't know when. I'm sure you know better than I do. But when the problems come next time, they're going to be worse than 2008, because the debt is so very, very high now. We had a big problem in 2008 because of too much debt. Oh my gosh, since 2009, the debt has skyrocketed in the U.S. So the next time we have a problem, it has to be very, very, very bad, just because the debt is so bad.
And just as you said, gave us this point about the Indian rupee in terms of a policy move that you would like, what would you like to see happening in the United States, perhaps post-November after the election results are out?
Well, if the United States, I said if the United States cuts its spending and cuts its debt, it would be fabulous for the United States and for the world. They're not going to do it. Do not worry, they are not going to do it. But if they did, the whole world would benefit. And the US dollar could have more time, more years on top. But with the way they're going, since the debt goes higher and higher every day, we know that history says that means we're coming to the end. And if India would open its rupee and make it convertible, oh my gosh, India would be rising faster and faster again.
Well, Jim, we do have a sort of partial convertibility, but that's something that our policymakers and central bank has to take a call on. I want you to talk about crude oil. Along with gold, crude oil is again a large import bill for India, and what happens globally as far as crude oil prices and supplies are concerned is very, very important for India and our inflation trajectory. What's your sense about how crude oil prices are likely to behave in the near future?
Well, crude oil prices will stay higher. We are running out of known reserves of oil. Maybe we're going to discover a lot, but in the meantime, known reserves of oil are still going into decline, and the world is getting more and more people, more and more prosperous every year. That means more demand. Don't sell your crude. Don't sell your gold. Don't sell your silver. Don't sell your crude.
Okay.
And don't sell your Indian shares.
Don't sell your Indian shares. Well, that's something that a lot of people will take note here. As crude oil prices rise, we have seen in the past the US shale oil industry kicks in and kind of balances things out. Do you think a revival in the US shale industry could also help control runaway prices if that were to occur?
Well, maybe you know what the US is going to do better than I, but I don't see anything changing in the US except more borrowing, more printing, and more spending. That means that the economy is going to be okay for a while. If you give me $1 trillion, you and I will have a very, very good time. Well, that's what they're doing in the US. They're printing and borrowing $1 trillion all the time. So of course things are good right now. That will come to it always has come to an end, and it will come to an end in the US. And then we will have the worst recession in my lifetime, because the debt is so much higher now compared to any time in American history, certainly compared to 2008.
Those are stark warnings there, Jim, and it would worry anyone who would be watching you speak right now, because that kind of scenario is going to hurt the developing world and even countries like India, which have significant exposure to global trade and to the United States. How long do you think the overhang of geopolitical tensions will continue to remain on crude oil, given what we are seeing in West Asia, given what we have been seeing in Ukraine?
Well, you know what's happening in Ukraine, you know what's happening in the Middle East. That makes demand for crude oil more, it goes up because everybody's worried, and they should be. I'm worried, we all should be worried. So that will continue the price rise, the pressure on the increase in crude oil prices. So don't sell your crude oil, because even if we have peace, crude oil will go down for a while. But if it goes down, you should buy it, because the world still has supply problems with crude oil.
Jim, when we last spoke, you had commented about cryptocurrencies. The broader question that I'm asking you to explain to our viewers, after a period of massive speculation in cryptocurrencies for which a use case is still being debated, we are now seeing safe haven investment in gold and other commodities. What's your sense about crypto? Has anything turned as far as that sector is concerned, or you are completely thumbs down on that?
Well, cryptocurrencies have become or have been and become great trading vehicles. If you're a great trader, you can probably make a lot of money trading the cryptocurrencies. I'm not a trader, so I don't have anything to do with them. I'm not going to invest in cryptocurrencies because I see them as a trading vehicle. If you are a good trader, you can make a fortune. Some people already have. But remember, some cryptocurrencies have already disappeared and gone to zero. So be careful, because in my view, they're all going to go to zero eventually. But in the meantime, if you're a good trader, do it. Have fun. Make a lot of money.
That's a good point. Jim, I know you told me at earlier during this conversation that you don't know what level gold prices will reach to, but I was seeing one estimate which said $3,000. That's just one estimate. You kind of, do you want to say whether it could be even higher than that? Because that forecast has already sort of sent a lot of signals through the market.
Well, of course, gold can go higher than $3,000. Not this week, not this month, but before this is all over, if we do have the bad times I see coming, of course it can go to $3,000. You know, everybody's going to be worried, including me. And when everybody is worried, they look for something to protect them. And gold and silver for thousands of years have been safety valves, places where people go to hide. You know, I'm an old peasant. And us old peasants, we know when things go wrong, we want some gold in the closet. We want some silver under the bed. So put some silver under your bed. Put some gold in the closet.
Okay. Jim, since you say that bad times are coming, what would you tell an average Indian investor who has perhaps very little marginal exposure to equity, is perhaps just starting off on a investment journey as the Indian economy grows, and is trying to grapple with a world where uncertainty is the only certainty? What would you tell such investors at this point of time?
Well, as I've already said, that if I owned Indian shares, I wouldn't sell them yet because I can see good things coming out of Delhi. But if you decide you want to start selling, sell the things that have gone up the most and the things that you know the least about. The things that you know a lot about are usually okay to stay with, but the things that you don't really know what you're doing, please sell them. Please sell them. And you should, if you're going to be a successful investor, you must only invest in what you yourself know a lot about.
That's absolutely right. Jim, is there life beyond just gold and silver as far as the commodities space is concerned? Anything new, exciting on the that's cutting edge that you might want to talk about?
Well, we've mentioned oil. I wouldn't sell oil if I owned it. I'm not sure I'd run in to buy it now because it's up because of the wars. But if it goes down, I can certainly buy more oil. But agricultural products, agricultural products are still somewhat depressed compared to historic prices. So look at agriculture. And India has been a fantastic agricultural nation at times in its history. And it's going to be again if Delhi will just leave your farmers alone and let them do what they want.
Well, that's a good point there, but a lot of people in Delhi and the rest of India would also want you to talk about your own sense of the elections in the United States, what is likely to happen, and whether we will see the return of this government, Joe Biden, or do you think another term for Donald Trump is upon us?
Well, my first prediction is we will have an election. Don't worry. If we don't have an election, you should worry. You should worry a whole lot if America doesn't have its election. But I mean, I read the same things you do. It looks as though Mr. Trump is going to win. And if he wins, we would all like to know what he's going to do. He doesn't know what he's going to do. You know, it would depend on what he watches on TV that day. But Mr. Trump is going to try to make the economy stronger. It means he will spend more money. And at least in the beginning, the stock markets will go up because everybody knows he's going to try to make the market go up. But that's when you should really worry. That will probably be the last up move in the American stock market. It's been going up for many years, the longest in history. So the next move will probably be the last move for a long time. That's when you should worry.
Suppose you are on TV and Donald Trump has come back to office and he's watching you. And this is 2 days after the results in the United States. What would you be talking about?
Well, what I would tell any politician in America is, please figure out a way to cut the spending. We've got to do something about the debt. My children are going to have a horrible time because of the big debt in America. So I would urge any American politician, we have to figure out a way to do something about a debt. I don't see any way humanly possible for America to pay its debts. That happened to England. It was the last country this happened to. And you know what happened to England? It went into serious decline for a long time. Eventually, England went bankrupt. England was the richest country in the world 100 years ago. They went bankrupt. I don't like to say it, but it can certainly happen to the United States too. I don't see any way that the U.S. can handle the debt. It is so high.
And since you've spoken about England and the United States, what are your views on China today?
Well, the Chinese stock market is actually one of the few stock markets that's down right now. They got hit with a virus and they got hit with a gigantic property bubble, as you know. So China is one of the few stock markets where I would be looking for things to invest in now, because it's one of the few stock markets that's down. I haven't found anything, probably because I'm lazy, but I would look at markets that are down, and China's one of the few markets that's still down.
Okay. Jim, as we wind down this conversation, I want to ask you, you've been at it for decades, and you, the sense one gets every time one speaks with you is that you have this enthusiasm and you sort of go out and enjoy what you're doing. Is that the reason behind your success that has sustained for so many years now, Jim?
Well, I want you to know I've made many mistakes in my life, you know, and I continue to. I hope I live long enough to make many, many more mistakes. I don't like mistakes, but I know that that's part of life, part of who I am. We can sit here and talk about mistakes. You want to talk about my first wife? What a mistake that was.
Well, now, Jim, what I wanted to ask you, since this is a business conversation, is do you think it's a mistake that you didn't kind of take a large position in the Indian market when valuations were down post-COVID, for example?
Well, my recent mistake in India was I do not own Indian shares. I can see that Delhi is changing. I can see that good things are starting to happen in India. And I sit here like a fool, and I don't own any Indian shares. That's a big mistake for me.
Why not now? Because I asked you this question in the context of what Mr. Warren Buffett was asked, and he kind of also spoke about the potential of investing in India, and that has got a lot of attention. People follow your remarks as well. So don't you think the time is now? Because in the markets, the time you enter is perhaps the best time. You can't time your entry.
Well, if you don't own any Indian shares and you know about India and the Indian market, you might consider starting to buy Indian shares. I said before, I wouldn't sell them if I owned any. I expect the Indian market to continue to go higher. I'm delighted that Delhi seems to be doing the right thing and understanding the right thing. So if I didn't own Indian shares, I would try to buy some if I were Indian. and I knew about some of the industries and some of the companies.
But since you know about currencies, Jim, my very final question, and since you spoke about making the rupee convertible fully, if that were to happen, what would you do? What would pan out as a consequence?
If Delhi made the currency convertible, I would buy Indian shares, even though they're at an all-time high, because I would know that Delhi is really finally getting its act together and is going to make India even better. So if they made the currency convertible, I would bite my tongue and I would buy shares.
Okay, Jim, that's a scenario which we can talk about it, but perhaps may not play out in terms of the currency opening up. But a lot of our viewers would wait for the day when Jim Rogers would buy Indian stocks, because I know they would flock in a line behind you to also buy those same stocks. Jim Rogers, as always, it was wonderful talking to you and for taking us through your own understanding of what's happening in the global markets, as well as the gold rush that we are seeing currently happen. Thank you very much for your time.
I would just like to quickly say, if and when if they do something, I would be cautious when I buy Indian shares. I would buy them, but I wouldn't rush in too fast, because buying things at the high usually can lead to problems. But if they made the currency convertible, of course, I would buy India. I love India, and I would love to buy the market.
And there are a lot of Indians, those who invest in the markets, who invest in gold, who will value every single word of what you have said, Jim Rogers. Thank you very much for your time with us today. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. We'll be back with more. Until then, goodbye. Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I am Siddharth Zarabi, and joining me today is JC Artigas, the Global Head of Research at the World Gold Council. Thank you very much for joining us, JC. The conversation is being held at the backdrop of what is happening to gold prices. And there are all manner of details and information that are coming out as to what is happening as far as gold is concerned. Give us an overview of where the gold market stands as of now.
Thank you so much for having me, by the way. And it's a very interesting time to be looking at the gold